Okay, let's start Book 10, The Grace of the Witch. Though we're not going to meet the witch quite yet. We'll meet the witch in the next video. Um, so this is right on the heels of Odysseus escaping the Cyclops. Right? And if you recall, the Cyclops had cursed Odysseus by praying to Poseidon. Oh God, Father Poseidon, if you love me as a dad, right? Remember my plea. Don't let Odysseus ever get home. Or if he does, right? Far be that day. So let it be a long time from now. Yeah, he says, let him lose all companions. So he's got to come home all alone. And then thirdly, let him come home under strange sail, which means he's lost his own ship and he's being escorted by somebody else. So with that curse now, Odysseus continues his journey. Let's pick it up. We made our landfall on Aiolia Island, domain of Aiolis Hippodites, or the wind god. Hippo is Greek for horse, so like the rounder up of wind, as if the wind was horses. So pretty much an air cowboy. He's the Wind King, dear to the gods who never die. An isle adrift upon the sea, ringed round with brazen ramparts on a sheer cliffside. 12 children had old Aeolus at home, 6 daughters and 6 lusty sons. And he gave girls to boys to be their gentle brides. Now those lords, in their parents' company, sup every day in hall, a royal feast, with fumes of sacrifice and winds that pipe round hollow courts. And all the night they sleep on beds of filigree beside their ladies. We put in, lodged in the town and palace, while Aeolus played host to me. He kept me 1 full month to hear the tale of Troy. A month is a long time when you don't have any time to spare. Remember, his wife is waiting for him. But he's there a full month. There are no newspapers or anything. So this is the only way the Air King, the wind god, can get his news. And so night after night, Odysseus tells him of Troy, the ships, and the return of the Achaeans, all which I told him in point by point in order. When in return I asked his leave to sail and asked provisioning, he stinted nothing, adding a bull's hide sewn from neck to tail into a mighty bag, bottling storm winds. For Zeus had long ago made Aeolus warden of winds, to rouse or calm at will. You SpongeBob fans know exactly what's going to happen here, right? It is a pretty cool gift. So the Wind King takes all the wind and puts it in a bag and seals the bag up for Odysseus. Presumably that'll make it easier for Odysseus to get home. He wedged this bag under my afterdeck, lashing the neck with shining silver wire so not a breath got through. Only the west wind he lofted for me in a quartering breeze to take my squadron spanking home. No luck. The fair wind failed us when our prudence failed. 9 days and nights we sailed without event, till on the 10th we raised our land. By raised, meaning they could see it. We neared it and saw men building fires along the shore, but now, being weary to the bone, I fell into deep slumber. I had worked the sheet 9 days alone and given it to no one, wishing to spill no wind on the homeward run. But while I slept, the crew began to parley. Silver and gold, they guessed, were in that bag bestowed on me by Aeolus's great heart. And one would glance at his benchmate and say, "It never fails. He's welcome everywhere. Hail to the captain when he goes ashore. He brought along so many presents. Plunder out of Troy, that's it. How about ourselves? His shipmates all the way? Near home we are with empty hands. And who has gifts from Aeolus? He has. I say we ought to crack that bag. There's gold and silver plenty in that bag." Temptation had its way with my companions, and they untied the bag. Here's my question. How come Odysseus didn't tell his crew what was in the bag? Maybe he thought they wouldn't believe him. Either way, this feels to be a real breakdown of leadership, right? He does not trust his men. Odysseus still has things to learn. So they're right off the coast of Ithaca, and he has yet to say, hey guys, don't open this bag. There's wind in this bag. Yeah, he doesn't trust them. And I know he doesn't trust them because he spent 9 days doing all the driving, right? And I'm sure he's exhausted, 9 days awake, without sleeping at all. And everybody's like, well, let us steer the ship a little bit. No, I got it. You wouldn't do it right. So Odysseus still has some things to learn. Then, every wind roared into hurricane. The ships went pitching west with many cries. Our land was lost. You know what's behind these words is the idea that if they could see Ithaca, it stands to reason that Ithaca could see them. So it doesn't explicitly say it in the text, but you can imagine Penelope, a servant running up to Penelope and saying, Odysseus' ships are offshore. And after 10 and a half years, she's just feeling like, oh, wow, I can't wait to see my husband. Or Telemachus, her son, who can't wait to meet his father for the first time. But they open the bag. Is it jealousy? Yeah. Mistrust? Probably. But they open the bag and it blows them away. Roused up, despairing in that gloom, I thought, should I go overside for a quick finish or clench my teeth and stay among the living? Down in the bilge I lay, pulling my sea cloak over my head while the rough gale blew the ships and rueful crews clear back to Aiolia. We put offshore for water, and then all hands gathered alongside for a midday meal. And when we had taken bread and drink, I picked one soldier and one herald to go with me, and called again on Aiolis. I found him at meat with his young princes and his lady. But there beside the pillars in his portico we sat down silent at the open door. The sight amazed them, and they all exclaimed, "Why back again, Odysseus? What sea fiend rose in your path? Did we not launch you well for home, or for whatever land you chose?" Out of my melancholy, I replied, "Mischief aboard and nodding at the tiller. A damned drowse did for me. Make good my loss, dear friends. You have the power." Right? Could you put the wind back in the bag for me, pretty please? Yeah, we screwed up. We let it out. Gently I pleaded, but they turned cold and still. Said Father Aiolis, "Take yourself out of this island, creeping thing. No law, no wisdom lays it on me now to help a man the blessed gods detest. Out! Your voyage here was cursed by heaven." It was cursed by the Cyclops. This is extremely painful for Odysseus, to be so close to what he wants and then to be whisked away. There's this Greek mythological tale about Tantalos, and this is where we get the word tantalizing from. He has to serve forever in the underworld, hungry and thirsty. And he's thirsty in a whole lake of water. But every time he bends down to drink, the water sucks away and he can never fill up. And he's hungry, and he's got grapes hanging right next to his face. But every time he reaches for those grapes, a wind blows them out of reach. And you get the sense that that's what's going on here. He's tantalized. He's teased by having what he wants, but he hasn't learned enough. He hasn't learned humility. He hasn't learned trust. Let's continue. Next stop. He drove me from the place, groan as I would, and comfortless we went again to sea. Days of it, till the men flagged at the oars. No breeze, no help in sight, by our own folly. 6 indistinguishable nights and days before we raised the Lastragonian height and far stronghold of Lamos. In that land the daybreak follows dusk, and so the shepherd, homing, calls to the cowherd setting out. And he who never slept could earn 2 wages, tending oxen and pasturing silvery flocks, where the low light night path of the sun is near the sun's path by day. Hold on. There are places in the world where this happens. There's certain parts of Alaska during certain months of the year where, because of the tilt of the earth, the sun never quite sets. You know, you can go out at 2 in the morning and it's as bright as it would be at like 7 at night, where the sun dips real low to the horizon, but it never quite disappears. So it's interesting that the ancient Greeks would have heard tell of places where this happens, where the sun dips low but doesn't ever quite disappear, and you could work all the way through the night. So it's a marvel to me, like, how would they find that out? Would travelers who had been that far north in the world, you know, just tell tales and tales until they eventually reached the Greeks? And now the Greeks have an idea that someplace like this exists. Now, was it in Italy? No, right? You would have to be north of the Arctic Circle to see that. But for Homer, who's writing this poem, Italy's north enough to have a place like this. Okay, let's continue. Here, then, we found a curious bay with mountain walls of stone to left and right, and reaching far inland. A narrow entrance opening from the sea where cliffs converged as though to touch and close. All of my squadron sheltered here, inside the cavern of this bay. Black prow by prow, those hulls were made fast in a limpid calm without a ripple. Stillness all around them. My own black ship I chose to moor alone on the seaside, using a rock for bollard, and climbed a rocky point to get my bearings. No farms, no cultivated land appeared, but puffs of smoke rose in the wilderness, so I sent out 2 picked men and a herald to learn what race of men this land sustained. My party found a track, a wagon road for bringing wood down from the heights to town. And near the settlement they met a daughter of Antiphates, the Lastragonian, a stalwart young girl taking her pail to Artakia, the fountain where these people go for water. My fellows hailed her, put their questions to her. Who might the king be, ruling over whom? She waved her hand, showing her father's lodge, so they approached it. In its gloom, they saw a woman like a mountain crag, the queen, and loathed the sight of her. But she, for greeting, called from the meeting ground her lord and master, Antiphates, who came to drink their blood. He seized one man and tore him on the spot, making a meal of him. The other 2 leapt out of doors and ran to join the ships. Behind he raised the whole tribe howling, countless Lastragonians, and more than men they seemed, gigantic when they gathered on the skyline to shoot great boulders down from slings, and hell's own crashing rose, and crying from the ships as planks and men were smashed to bits. Poor gobbets, the wildmen speared like fish and bore away. But long before it ended in the anchorage, havoc and slaughter, I had drawn my sword and cut my own ship's cable. Men! I shouted, man the oars and pull till your hearts break if you would put this butchery behind. The oarsmen rent the sea in mortal fear, and my ship spurted out of range, far out from that deep canyon where the rest were lost. So we fared onward, and death fell behind, and we took breath to grieve for our companions. So I have driven, this is that bay he talks about with the cliffs all around. And these giants are throwing boulders down onto his entire fleet. But Odysseus' ship, who parked outside, he gets away. Here we are fulfilling the Cyclops' prophecy, the Cyclops' prayer, that he lose all companions. And now he's down to only one ship, for all the rest were lost to these giant cannibals. All right, let's hop over to the map and check out what we learned. Okay, so my lines get a little crazy here. If you'll recall, number 4 was the Cyclops. So now he's continuing on to this island, this mythical island, which is said to float in the air, and it kind of, it moves around. This is where he meets Aiolis, the wind god. He spends a month there, and he gives him the bag of wind to get home. So I have this line going right to the edge of Ithaca, I don't know, maybe a half a mile away, where you can see the fires being built. And then his men open the bag and it blows them right back to where they started. So close. Then the Lastragonians are generally considered up here on the coast of Italy. So leaving Aiolis all despondent, there is no wind. They just start rowing, and they row until they meet these giant cannibals, the Lastragonians, who destroy all of his ships but one. So what did we learn? Let me fix the Lastragonians here. Here I have number 5, Aiolis, the wind god. He's there for a month. The wind god gives him a bag of wind. Odysseus doesn't trust his crew. It's a trust problem here. It backfires. And they don't trust him either. A breakdown of leadership. Just offshore, they open the bag, and the rest is history. And then stop number 6, the Lastragonians. You have a bunch of giants in this land, and they immediately eat. They don't even ask questions. They just tear apart and eat the one guy who was exploring. The other 2 run back to their ships. We do get another Homeric simile where Homer compares the spearing of the ships, of the men on the ships from up above, to what it would be like to spear fish in the sea. And so I guess the lesson might be, don't park all of your boats in one spot, but this is more of a character reveal for Odysseus. Okay. Next, we meet the witch.